Hello, I'm Kristen Perisonotto.
And I'm Hannah Ferguson, and we're co-founders of Cheek Media Co.
This is the Weekly Cheek podcast.
Before we start this podcast, I would like to acknowledge that the land that we are recording on is owned by the Yagara and Turrbal people. This was and always will be Aboriginal land. All right, welcome back to the Weekly Cheek.
Welcome.
Where did you go?
I don't know, I was on another planet there. I'm back.
Just for such a short moment.
It was such a short moment.
Today, we are doing part 2 of our Taboo series.
2.
Yes.
Wow, is that
series
really
is probably a generous term for it.
But yeah, two-parter.
Two-parter. And in this one, we're talking about, so if you missed it, last week we talked about like taboos that are still taboo, basically.
Crazy.
And today,
Right now.
this episode, immediately coming up in a moment, we're talking about taboos that like our generation and like we're in different generations, like young people have broken down in recent history.
Okay, the first one I want to go with, and I think there's a bit of a conversation to be had about it, is someone has said talking about politics and deciding friendships based on political views. So I think it's not necessarily that like politics itself is taboo, but I think that there was, I think that it was more extremist in the past to not determine, like if you determined friendships based on political views, that was just like a lot. And I think that that's becoming more normal as like we don't align as people and I can't continue this relationship.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I agree.
Yeah.
I fully agree because like, I mean, my parents like happily have friendships with people who have different political views than them.
Do you think it means that our generation is too divisive and polarizes society?
No, because I think conservatives are wrong. No, it's because I think that our generation, like more than, I think that our generation has brought into the mainstream the relationship between politics and personal ethics and morals. And I think that also we're living in like it's a divisive political world. And I think that has just resulted in us being like, no.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my opinion.
I agree.
Agree.
Okay.
Yay us.
Yay. Interesting. Consent. I don't think it's necessarily ever been taboo to talk about consent, but I always think it's been uncool.
Yeah, I don't think consent is... I wouldn't say consent has ever been a taboo.
I think actually rape has been a taboo.
Talking about rape.
Yes, talking about what is rape.
But then I think we're arguing. I think if rape is a taboo, then consent is a taboo.
Yeah, but what I more mean is I think it's more nuanced than that. I think it's not necessarily just pinning these topics as taboo. I think the conversation is more like we are more willing to clearly identify what is and isn't rape, what is and isn't consent, what circumstances are and aren't okay. And I think we're shifting from a culture of victim blaming to an assumption of believing.
I don't think any of that I wouldn't class any of that as being taboo prior, but I do think what's taboo is being open about your own sexual assault. Because I think in the past, people were like, oh, whoa, don't talk about that. That's awful. But now we're like, we have to talk about it.
Yes.
Which is a resulting from, it's just nuance, really.
Yeah.
We're mostly agreeing. We're agreeing.
Very aggressively.
But I don't know why. I just don't feel like that's a taboo thing. I think it's because I'm like, it's like too important of an issue. I don't know. I just feel like for some reason anti saying that was a taboo. I don't know why.
I think it's because taboo feels like it's like a shh.
Yeah.
And I also don't think that the world I've ever lived in has felt like that about those things because I've grown up in, I would say, a culture of consent and talking about your experiences. So I actually don't...
I have not.
Really?
No fucking way. Absolutely not. That's so strange. It's only 5 years apart, but I'd say it's more about like the culture that we were individually in than the time. Although I think a lot changed between like even me being in high school and you being in high school, to be honest. Because like I would have been in grade 12 when you were in grade 8.
Yep.
Or like there's a weird difference with Queensland, New South Wales. But I feel like a lot of the stuff that we were saying at school, it like became very quickly unacceptable.
Really?
To like use the word gay as an insult, for example, and like use the R word. Like I feel like we were all saying it at school, and then like it didn't take long and everyone was like, you can't say that.
Yeah, I felt like when I was going through, you couldn't say it.
Yeah. And we both grew up regionally, so it's like fairly comparable.
Yeah.
Even though I was in conservative Queensland.
I think there is a difference between the regional areas we grew up in. I think that mine was more progressive and my school was more progressive, even though they were both religious schools.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be hard. No, I don't think it was necessarily open. Like even when I was at uni, you know, I would hear about, I've talked about it before, you know, someone I know, a man I know was accused of rape, and it took me a minute to get there to the point of believing her. I really did. Even though I knew he was creepy. And I was talking about this with a friend last night, actually. We remember this. We were talking about this house party and how this is so fucked up as a memory. He was just chatting to one of our friends and we were like, oh, there he is fucking having a go in the corner at her. Ew. And we were like, don't worry, he does that to everyone. That was the vibe. And looking back on that, I'm like, who was that version of me? Because like it was at the time like, oh, he's fucking harmless. He's like a daddy long leg spider. Just give him the fucking flick. But no, he's a fucking rapist.
Yeah.
And you know, I think we all have had that sort of experience, whether it be in school, whether it be at uni, where you normalize that and it's almost taboo to call it out. I think that's it. Like in a sense, like I still struggle to call things out.
Yeah. Yes, I would agree with that. I think that I've like figured out what my thought is on the talking about like rape and consent. I think that previously it just was not important to society and it's becoming more important to society.
Yes. There is a conversational shift, and I think even in the last 18 months, it's changed monumentally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brittany Higgins, Grace Tame, Chanel Contos, like those stories have shifted everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're agreeing.
We're agreeing.
Sex before marriage and kids before marriage or outside of marriage. I think that's been a while though.
I don't know. That's a hard one to pin down when things change.
Well, I think as marriage becomes less relevant, so do those elements. And I think when religion becomes less relevant, those things change. Like I don't think it's like one thing. I think it's the product of social growth.
Do you know what I think is actually the thing for me is kids outside of marriage accidentally versus purposefully.
Yeah.
Because in my town there were a lot of people who fell pregnant accidentally when they were like outside of marriage or when they were like younger than they might have like planned to have kids. And I feel like that was happening a lot. It was not responded to well, obviously. But that was happening heaps.
Yeah, okay.
And I think like that's the difference.
I think, there's a conversation to be had about, for me, actually, I was and remain, unfortunately, judgmental of women who I went to school with who had children young. And I remember ringing my mum one day, and it's because I am unfortunately elitist when it comes to my education. Not that I didn't go to a fancy private school or anything. Like I literally just went to a Catholic school in Orange, right? And I think I was the first person in my immediate family to go, like my parents didn't go to uni. My dad dropped out in year 9, joined the Navy. My mum made it to year 12, moved overseas. I have extended family who've been to university, but I got a scholarship to study law. I was always, that was my badge of honor, right? It was being that person that was academically ahead always. It was always what I prided my personality on. And everyone had to know all the fucking time, right? Hate that about myself now. Got to uni, fucking hated every minute, straight 4s, right? Barely passed. But the thing is that when I was leaving Orange and I was like, I have to get out of this fucking town. I'm so much bigger and better than it. You know the vibes, right? Like fucking.
I had those vibes.
Yeah. Yes. I am just like, I'm a star.
I'm being held back.
Yeah, I'm being held back, right?
Just wait.
And my close friendship circle are all incredibly intellectual and we push the shit out of each other, right? And then when I left and I looked back and, women who I went to school with were like, staying in Orange and having babies, and I would just I remember ringing my mum and just being like, fucking who would do that? Yeah. And she said, stop it, you are so judgmental. And I was like,
wow, being cancelled by your mother.
I know. And you know what she said to me? And she said, some people being a mom is the best thing they'll ever be and the most they ever want to be. And that's admirable. And that is still a beautiful thing. And I was like, holy fuck, I'm fucking cancelled. And I realized like it really turned my world upside down because I still love looking at all their pictures. Like when they'd have a baby, I'd be like, fuck, it's beautiful. But I'd be like, they're just in Orange having babies. And, you know, it was because like, a couple had like 3 babies by the time we were like 21. And I was like, fuck, who would do that? And it's like, it's just a life choice, Hannah. And I'm not better than them for that.
Yeah.
And I think it comes with the territory of being at uni and in a new city and on your own and all that character development. But now I look at them and I'm like, they are probably so much happier than me too. You know? And like, who am I to fucking say what's better and what's more worthy? And I think that really was a big thing for me.
Yeah. I mean, I was a bit thingy because like I think I've said this on the podcast before, but I finished school and I had 2 gap years and I stayed in my hometown and I worked and then I came to uni after that. So for those 2 years, I was pretty much all of my friends fucked off to Brisbane and I was like alone. Looking back, actually, like very terrible time of my life. But I'm fine now, so don't worry. And the thing for me that was so weird was that all of my friends who were taking similar paths that I was going to take, because my plan was always to take 2 years and then go to uni. So I feel like my mindset in those 2 years was always like, well, this is temporary, this is temporary, this is temporary. And I was seeing all of my friends live the life that I was like, well, I'll see you there soon. Like, I'm going to be there soon. And the people who were like, left, I guess, the people who were left over in Gympie, in the town that I grew up in, were there because they wanted to stay.
Yep.
And I was there temporarily because all the people who were following the path that I wanted to follow were gone.
Yep.
And I didn't really have like, I mean, I can't pretend like I wasn't like, what the fuck, why are these people? Because some people used to come into the pharmacy that I worked at and they would be like, oh, like, you're here kind of thing. And I was always like, adjust until the end of the year. Like, I'm leaving. Like, I was always
obsessed with telling people.
Yes, but it was more because I didn't want them to think that I was staying. I mean, that is elitist in itself.
Yeah.
And I don't think I actually thought that much about the other people who wanted to stay. But there was this one woman I remember so clearly, and we were having a conversation and I was like, I just cannot fucking wait to leave this place. Like, I can't be here anymore for many reasons, which I won't go into. But if you listen to the episode about my talking about being in a cult, maybe you'll know.
Maybe you'll get a little hint.
And a religious cult it was. It was a religion. Anyway, go and listen if you want details. She said, oh, you're not like one of those people who wants to like live in like overseas or something, are you? Oh. And I was like, excuse me?
How dare you judge me for that?
But I was like, what a weird, I'm like, and then, but to be honest, like in my unevolved 18-year-old brain, I'm like, you are fucking having a go at someone who wants to go and live overseas and do something fun and you want to stay here for the rest of your fucking life and you're judging them? What the fuck? And like, I know I was just like, you know, creating more judgment in reaction to judgment.
But it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, but I was just like, that is like out of fucking line.
No, I don't think it is. I mean,
for her to say that.
I just think that I judged them for staying. They were judging us for leaving. Doesn't that make sense?
But isn't it so weird to just be like, you're not one of those people that go and live overseas?
Well,
like, why is that outrageous?
But why is it outrageous that they want to live in Orange for the rest of their lives or Gympie?
I didn't think it was outrageous at the time. I didn't think it was outrageous.
But now I just think, well, fair enough. Some people will think it's outrageous that I want to do what I'm doing.
Yeah, I guess. Weird.
It's literally just two sides of a coin.
Oh yeah, but I just feel like it's more acceptable one way. Sorry, that's problematic.
Yeah, because you're the person that would do. Like, do you see what I'm saying? What I'm saying is, it's interesting that people sitting there going, why the fuck would she want to do that? When they just, you know, like, why a lot of people would think, why would you want to go to uni and work full time and blah blah blah? Like, you know, one of my friends in at uni that I lived with said to me one day, you know, I know you're going to judge me for this, but like, I really just can't wait to just, you know, for him to take over and me to be able to stop working and have children. And I was like, yikes, yes, I am. And you know what? That's not fair. Yeah. That's not feminism. Feminism is about choice. That's the thing.
I just want to do an episode about choice feminism because I kind of don't believe in it.
Okay.
But I'm going to leave that for later. Keep tuning in later at some unexplained date.
That's what I mean. Like, if it's about choice and it might not be, we'll argue about that later. I think it's like, it's wrong for me to judge that because, you know, who would want to work? But for me, it's like, well, I would rather die than have children and stay at home with them all day.
Yeah.
Well, at least now. And that's the thing. It's just, who am I to say?
Yeah. Maybe the taboo's still there.
Yeah. Next.
I guess the taboo is like, the issue is like people accepting people living different lifestyles to you.
Yeah. Gender identity.
Yes. I still think it's a bit tough for a lot of people.
Oh, of course.
But I think that we're definitely on the right path to breaking down the taboo of.
But I also think it's more about education. Like my younger brother and sister who are 18 and 16 fucking school me daily on, you know, gender identity, gender expression, the differences, the spectrum, your sexuality. Like I constantly feel like I'm learning and I constantly feel like I don't know things, but it's just like about having an openness to the conversation. And I think that it's so fucking fascinating. And every time I see someone who maybe is expressing their gender identity in a vastly different way to me, I just think like, unfortunately, I think, wow. And I do think brave. And I want to stop thinking brave because that's literally just them being who they are.
Yeah.
But in society, I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
That is so impressive.
Yes. Well, I think that that's like braveness and taboo go hand in hand because people are only brave if they're going against a taboo.
Yeah.
So I don't really have much to. I think the other thing about like the difference between like when we went to school and when your siblings are going through school is that people are talking about it at school. And I know you can talk about it with friends and everything like that, but I just feel like so many like of your, it's just formative years. And if you're around lots of, you know, people of your own age, like kids of your own age who are expressing themselves really differently, then it's just like, much, I guess, not really necessarily easier, but like you're being so much more exposed to the different like gender expressions. And like, I mean, probably you're the same, but when I was at school, like that wasn't a thing that was happening at all.
No. And then, you know, at the moment, like my brother's 18, he's just finished school and he's working full time on a gap year. And he called me the other day and was talking about his friends and introduced them with their pronouns. And well, like I know them, but I was talking about one of his friends and he was like, Hannah, they, them.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
He was like, it's okay. Fix it.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, fucking hell. Whoa. And then he was like, I've seen your thumbnails on YouTube. I think you need thumbnails for cheek. And I was like, okay, feedback taken.
When we have thumbnails.
But it's like, when I have these conversations, I'm like, fuck, I have so much faith in them.
Yeah.
I just love them.
Yes, same. Yeah. Same. I know some millennials hate the Zoomers, but I'm like, go off queens
but
and
like,
kings and non-binary royalty.
I'm a Zoomer and the younger Zoomers than me are so impressive.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually the key to progress is like not having these weird generational divides.
We hate generational divides on this podcast.
Except fuck you boomers.
Yeah, except the boomers. Even the good ones, I'm like, sometimes they're not so good. No, we do actually have boomers who follow Cheek and like give us really good feedback and really enjoy our content, which we're like,
and always make a point like, I'm a boomer, so I know I'm not your target audience, but I'm like, it's okay, I don't mean like that.
Yeah.
Women in caring roles and it being a job and treated as such. I think the mental load is a conversation that we're having.
Oh, right. I thought you meant like women in caring roles like nursing, and I was like,
no.
What?
I think this person is talking about
accepting that being a job.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like motherhood not just being like this thing that women are lucky to do while their husbands are at work or something.
I don't think we've broken that one down.
Really?
No. I think we're like
it's
on the
way.
right path, but I think we're still like, unfortunately, a long way off breaking that one down.
I don't know. Like I think that I think we're cracking open the conversation about the mental load, the inequalities in relationships, in heterosexual relationships specifically. And I think there's a lot to be said about it, but I think we're like 10% of the journey through. So I think we agree, right?
I would say less, to be honest.
Really?
I think it's really just so prevalent. Like, I don't think we're far.
Okay.
But the thing that always, it's hard because like, I feel like in our circles, it's like going in the right direction and people are having these discussions. But I think in the wider world, like there's so much work to do still.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
That's sad. Say something happy.
Non-monogamy. I actually don't think that that's been broken down at all.
I think it has a bit.
I struggle with it.
It's definitely a huge taboo for straights.
Yes.
But I think for the LGBTQIA plus community, it's been broken down.
Why do you think it's not for straights?
Because there's like one option that's like displayed for straight people.
What is that? An open marriage?
No, monogamy.
Oh.
I think it's like, because it's like this is the norm. Like, and this is like the
binary.
Yeah, this is like the path that straight people are given. It's just like you are a woman, you marry man, you are together forever. Sometimes men cheat. You bring him back.
Yes.
Cheats again. You bring him back. Cheats again. You say, no more. Goes off on he does whatever. Goes and marries a younger woman. Then you are sad. I feel like it's like, that's what is shown to straight people. Whereas I think that people who are in the like queer community are like, well, we've already kind of like gone against that by like not being straight. Then it's like, well, world's the oyster, you know?
Absolutely.
And then it's just like, well, there's so many other options and like way for relationships to be.
No, I agree. I don't feel like there's another option for me, but I also don't, maybe I'm just like seeking highly monogamous relationships. I'm very monogamous. I would never be able to try anything else.
Yeah, but that's fine for you personally, but I don't think that is based on, I think that's just who you are personally. I don't think that's like about societal conditioning for you personally.
It's just that I struggle to feel like in most circumstances that are not monogamous that both parties are actually fine with it.
Yeah, sometimes it can be hard to believe.
Yeah.
Especially in straight relationships.
I think that's the thing.
Because the thing is always like, well, the man wants this and the woman
Yes.
is like waiting at home.
I don't know. Like it's something I struggle with, but I actually try to engage with quite a bit of content about it to learn more. I think also because straight relationships which engage in polygamy generally revolve around like weird religion and cult-like behavior. So we've seen like those men that father like 100 children, and there's all those documentaries about like fucking Tiger King shit, right?
Yeah.
And that's like what the picture is painted as, so it's stigmatized so significantly. What?
No, I was going to say, you know, my hot take from the Mormon documentary I watched. It's called Keep Sweet, Pray and
Obey.
Pray and obey.
Someone recommended it in the comments to us the other day.
I really liked it. I'm like really into like Mormon cults, not into them. I'm like into
the content. A lot of people are. I feel like I've never been into it, but a lot of people are. Yeah.
It's so fascinating to me, and it's really fucked up, and it's like just the worst for women. I'm not going to go all the way into it because I think I'm going to write an article, which I said that I was going to write weeks ago, but I didn't. Anyway, the point is, in the like mainstream Mormon faith, polygamy was outlawed like a long time ago, a significant time ago, and then the Mormons are now called the Church of Latter-day Saints, and there was a sect of like post that polygamy being outlawed, there was a sect that broke off and went out on their own, and they're called the Fundamentalists Church of Latter-day Saints, or like people call them the Fundies, and they are the ones that have multiple wives, like lots of sister wives, and they all dress in like those same dresses with they have to have long hair and like only a couple of like, you know, those hairstyles with like the poof at the top and like a braid down the back.
Yep.
Like everyone kind of probably has seen that type, like pictures and things. And so they're talking in this docu-series, which I do recommend. It's very interesting. They are like, basically, because polygamy is illegal, they're kind of like living in secret.
Yeah.
And then their marriages are like, the first one maybe is legal, but then the marriages after that are like marriages in the church. So they're not actually legal, but they kind of have to live in secret because they are like ostracized by wider society and also by the like more mainstream Mormons. Mm. And the thing that I found so interesting about this documentary is that the way it was filmed implied that the biggest problem that society had, mainstream society had with the Fundies is the multiple marriages. Like that's the thing that they were like so shocked by. And I thought like, isn't that so interesting? Because they're literally like, there's like hidden pedophilia, incest, like torture, manipulation, what's exploitation? What's that word where you like get money out of people falsely? Not embezzling.
No, it's another fun word. Get money out of, like fraudulent, just
Yeah, like basically the
laundering. I don't know. No.
it's like when so people tithe to the church, and then the like basically like the king of the fundamentalists just takes the money and like does whatever the fuck he wants with it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know what it is, but I
Yeah.
don't know the word.
No, me neither. Anyway, leave us a comment if you know. So all that shit was happening, but people were like, couldn't get, they're like, they have multiple wives. Like, it's crazy. And like, they're not doing it in any kind of ethical way, obviously. But I just found it so interesting that like, that's the thing that people are so shocked by.
It is interesting.
It's really weird, like reflection on society, in my opinion, because people can have like multiple relationships like in an ethical way. And obviously it's very different when it's done ethically, and polygamy is like illegal, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But just the fact that people could never get on board with, or the fact that people found that the most shocking element is just so weird to me.
Yeah. Not settling for bottom of the barrel relationships. I don't think that's destigmatized.
Me neither. I think people are still doing that way too much.
I literally think if you listen to our marriage episode last week, you see me fucking pop off about the fact that everyone's unhappy. And I actually thought so many people were going to fucking come for me and be like, how could you believe this? You know what I think we should talk about? This is a bit off center from that comment, but like what we were talking about yesterday in the car, which is our disbelief in the fundamental goodness of people.
Oh, people suck.
Yeah.
People are fundamentally bad in my
And
opinion.
I think that it kind of stems back to it in a way, but like, unfortunately, my fundamental view about people is that everyone is self-centered, everyone is acting in their own self-interest, and people will do the worst things in the world to each other in order to get one leg up, or, you know what I mean? Like, I know that's not necessarily bottom of the barrel relationships, but it's just that everyone is just doing things that benefit them. And like very few people I truly think are selfless or are acting in with the goodness of others at the front of their intentions. I'm a selfish person. You know, I constantly know that I am choosing to do things based on whether it suits me or not, whether it benefits me or not, but I'm not a bad person.
Yeah.
But I think when we think about this, it's like when I'm in a relationship, it's like, well, does this work for me? Does this give me everything I want? I know that's a lot.
Yeah.
But I also think that what this comes from is this idea that we put our romantic relationships as the highest relationship in our life, and we make it significantly more important than anything else. And I think that the idea of community and friendships and where this hierarchy sits and what's more important to people is the thing that destroys us. Because I think that we put this pressure on our romantic love interest, monogamous, in inverted quotes, it's very hetero, I know, relationships is the most important thing to look to. And if that's failing, our life is failing. And it's above our career, it's above, you know, our friendships, it's above everything we do in our communities. That's the problem. And I also think it stems from, I'm really going for it now, the inability of men to seek emotional support in anyone other than their intimate partner.
Yeah.
If we took the pressure off these relationships, less people would scrape the bottom of the barrel for them, and we'd all be much happier.
Yes.
I have such strong friendships both at work and in my personal life that being by myself, while I will say dating destroys me, I find it so fucking difficult and so much pressure because we have been taught that it is the be all and end all. And if you don't have someone, you are hollow in some fucking sick way.
Yeah.
And I think the thing is that we scrape the bottom of the barrel and we take anything that we can get because we're afraid. We're afraid of being alone, and we're afraid that we have this huge missing piece of our puzzle. And if you like, you should watch Daniel Sloss's special Jigsaw because it talks about this very well. But that is my view.
Yeah.
My view is that we scrape the bottom of the barrel because we're so obsessed with this idea of romantic love and having a monogamous partnership for life, and we choose just the most foul fucking companions in order to get there.
Well, I think that people just think like it's better to be in a bad relationship than alone.
Yep.
Which is so untrue. The other thing is when you're talking about being selfish, I actually think like the word, when you look at the definition of the word selfish, like it's actually not like an evil thing.
No, it's not.
Definitely people can do it in an evil way. But I think like really like it's hard not to be self-centered because you are you.
Yep.
But I think that like there is a taboo around the word selfish because like sometimes like I don't think I'm a selfish person in the like colloquial use of the word, but there are plenty of times where I'm like, no one fucking talk to me because I want to be alone right now. That's doing something selfish. It's just like, fuck off, not answering the phone, not answering the messages, don't talk to me and cancelling my plans because I want to be alone. That's a selfish act. I don't think it's a bad thing, because also me doing something like that makes me better for when I'm back with people again.
Absolutely. I also think that paired with self-awareness, selfishness is healthy.
Agree.
I think that it's about the fact that, like, when I think I'm engaging in selfish behavior, which is often, I am aware of it and I know why I'm doing it. And I think the question becomes, like, when someone is selfish just because they're selfish, like, it's, you know, what it kind of reminds me of, this is a bit weird as well, but you know when you feel ashamed or embarrassed about something that you've done, the thing I always do as my first point to, like, try and relieve myself of the guilt or shame that I feel is think, if someone did this to me, would I think about what they've done? No, often I'd find it funny, right? No one is thinking about anyone else. I don't think about the shit my friends did when they were drunk 5 years ago. I don't think about the shit that was said to me in school. I really am just obsessed with myself and everything that I do. And when I feel bad about these things, I think, does anyone else care? Not really, because we're all just fucking little planets inside our own minds, walking around thinking about ourselves all day, and we don't really care.
No, exactly.
We care to the extent that it impacts us and that it fulfills or does not fulfill our lives.
Yeah.
But beyond that, like, I inherently believe that we're all selfish, and it's not necessarily an evil thing.
No, it's not. I think it's natural and it's human nature. And the other thing is, I think that people who are like, a lot of people who are struggling in the world, like whether that be like parents, particularly single parents, like women who do everything for their husband and children and everything, people who are like work like too much to the point of burnout, it's because of a lack of their, like, they don't have the opportunity to be selfish.
Yeah.
Or they select not to, depending on the situation, obviously. But like, if you think of like the typical like burnt out, stressed, tired single mum, like, she hasn't been able, she can't be selfish because there's no time in the day.
Yeah.
And then she is not like a happy person,
Yeah.
you know, or maybe it's not like the best person she can be.
And it's not necessarily what she chose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that it is good to be
Selfish.
selfish.
It's a form of self-care.
Yes.
End of pod.
End of pod.
If you didn't find us completely insufferable, come back next Wednesday for a new episode.
You could also find us on Instagram at Cheek Media Co. or online at cheekmedia.com.au.
Yes. That's the one.
That's the one.